In this video, we're going to look at the quadratic formula. So when you have an equation in this format, that's called standard form for a quadratic equation. Standard form means that the first term has an x squared, the second term has the plain old x, and the third term doesn't have an x. And when you are given an equation in standard form, you can use this formula, the quadratic formula, to solve the equation. Now, it's a very long formula. It says x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all over 2a. So if you use this formula, it will tell you the answers to your problem. Sometimes these equations will have two answers. Sometimes these equations will have one answer, and sometimes they'll have no answers. So let's do an example here. First example is x squared minus 13x plus 40 equals 0. So in this problem, a is equal to 1. The number in front of x squared is 1, right? There's secretly a 1 there. B is negative 13, and C is 40. So we're going to start by writing down this formula and plugging in all the numbers in the right spot. So B is negative 13, and there's already a negative there, so it'll just be 13 plus or minus square root negative 13 squared minus 4 times 1 times 40 all over 2 times 1. So obviously we're going to need to do a lot of simplifying here. Let's start with this plus or minus. At the very end, we're going to have to do this problem twice. We're going to have to do this with a plus sign here and see what the answer is. And then we'll have to do it again with the minus sign and see what the answer is. But for now, let's just leave that there. The first thing you should simplify is the square root sign. You should simplify everything underneath the square root sign. So 13 plus or minus negative 13 squared is 169. 4 times 1 times 40 is 160. So minus 160 all over 2 times 1, which is 2. That made it a lot simpler, but we can still simplify underneath that square root sign. It'll be 13 plus or minus 169 minus 60 is 9 all over 2. There we go. Now we're really starting to see something here. The square root of 9 is 3. So our answer so far is 13 plus or minus 3 all over 2. This is as far as we can go without dealing with that plus or minus sign. So let's look at the two possibilities here. Maybe it's a plus sign. And if that's the case, then that's the answer. Maybe it's a minus sign, and if that's the case, this is the answer. Plus or minus means that both of them are possibilities, and we have to explore both of them. So in this one, I explored the idea that it was a plus. And in this one, I explored the idea that it was a minus. So let's simplify both of these. 13 plus 3 is 16. And 16 over 2 is 8. So one of the answers to this equation is x equals 8. The other one here, 13 minus 3 is 10. And 10 over 2 is 5. The other answer to this equation is 5. So remember I said at the beginning that these might have two answers. In this case, the two answers for this equation are x equals 8 and x equals 5. You might see your answer written like this. You might also see them written like this. X equals the set of numbers 5, 8, which means, hey, there's two answers. Here's the list of them, 5 and 8. So you might see them written both ways, depending on the situation. Just be prepared to write them both ways. All right, let's do another example. Let's do this one. Solve for x. 2x squared plus 5x equals 0. All right, so first let's identify a, b, and c. A is 2, b is 5, and there's no c. C is 0. Let's write the quadratic formula because it's a lot easier if you have it on your paper in front of you. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Let's plug in some numbers. Negative b would be negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 5 squared minus 4 times 2 times 0 all over 2 times 2. Now we're going to see here that c being 0 is going to make things a little simpler for us. 5 squared is 25. 4 times 2 times 0 is 0, so we don't have to do anything else under that square root sign. And it's all over 2 times 2, which is 4. The square root of 25 is 5, so 5 plus or minus 5 all over 4. This is the part where we have to break it into two possibilities. Maybe it's a plus sign, negative 5 plus 5 over 4. Maybe it's a minus 5, or yeah, minus 5. So negative 5 plus 5 is 0. So in this case, x is equal to 0. And in this case, it's going to be negative 10 over 4, which is negative 2.5. So this equation has two answers, 0 and negative 2.5. And again, you might want to write it like that. Sometimes you'll see people insist that you have to put them in order from smallest to largest, but it's not so big of a deal. All right, so that's how you use the quadratic formula to solve quadratic equations. This video is just to show you the very basics of the quadratic formula. We will not be doing equations yet that have 0 solutions. And you might get equations that have 1 solution. And if that's the case, when you get to this step, the plus and the minus will end up giving you the same answer somehow. Let's see one of those examples. We have time. It'll be a quick one. Solve for x. X squared plus 4x. Oops. Nope, that's not going to work. X squared plus 8x plus 16 equals 0. There we go. So in this one, a is 1, b is 8, c is 16, x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So in this problem, we're going to have negative 8 plus or minus 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times 16 all over 2. So negative 8 plus or minus 64 minus 64 all over 2. Hey, look at that. 64 minus 64. That's going to cancel out the entire square root sign. So we're just going to be left with x is equal to negative 8 plus or minus 0 all over 2. And we should know adding 0 and subtracting 0 will give you the same answer. So the plus or minus might as well not even be there. It's really just negative 8 over 2. This one has only one answer, and it's x equals negative 4. So I was going to say thanks for watching a few minutes ago, but I thought I'd show you one more example where we just have one answer. Again, we're not going to have equations with no answers just yet. But until then, thanks for watching.